Namaste, Professor Sharma. We are back on our fourth episode, reviewing the book by Professor A.L. Basham, the book called The Wonder That Was India. So,
Namaste, Pankaj. Yes,
Namaste,
nice
sir.
to be back. Yes.
Yes. All right. I think we finished chapter 1 of that book, right?
No, we have not. No.
Okay. So let's.
Yeah. So let's finish it today.
Yes.
So I'd like to begin by picking up two threads we discussed earlier.
Right.
And I'd like to make some further points about them
Sure. Yes.
and then move on to the new material.
Yes.
Now, the first point I'd like to raise is about Max Muller,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I'll cite a passage from Max Muller, which is often cited, and which you will see is very complementary to India. This is a part of a lecture he delivered to ICS candidates in England before they set out to India.
Okay. The future collectors of India.
Yes, I think this is how he concludes,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken.
I
will read out the passage.
Sure.
I know you will be surprised to hear me say this, namely that you have to learn from India. I know you will be surprised to hear me say this. I know that more particularly those who have spent many years of active life in Calcutta or Bombay or Madras will be horror struck at the idea that the humanity they meet with there, whether in the bazaars or in the courts of justice or in so-called native society, should be able to teach us any lessons. He goes on to say, let me therefore explain at once to my friends who may have lived in India for years as civil servants, as officers, or missionaries, or merchants, and who ought to know a great deal more of that country than one who has never set foot on the soil.
Yes.
The soil of Aryavart, that we are speaking of two very different Indias. I am thinking chiefly of India, such as it was 1,000, 2,000, it may be 3,000 years ago.
So he's speaking about himself, I guess, in a way, because he himself never set foot in India.
No, I will come to that later.
Okay.
I'm trying to complete the passage. Yeah? I'm thinking chiefly of India, such as it was 1,000, 2,000, it may be 3,000 years ago. They think of the India of today. And again, when thinking of the India of today, they remember chiefly the India of Calcutta, Bombay or Madras, the India of the towns. I look to the India of the village communities, the true India of the Indians. You just listen to how he ends. Please, carefully. What I wish to show to you, I mean more especially the candidates for the Indian civil service, is that this India of 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, the India of today also, if only you know where to look for it, is full of problems, the solution of which concerns all of us, even in this Europe of the 19th century. I may have chosen the wrong quote at this moment,
Okay.
but not really wrong. Not really wrong. The 2
Yeah.
points I wish to make. One, that he himself admits
Mm. Mm-hmm.
that he
Like
has not set foot on the soil of India.
never went to India. Yes.
But now hear him say this.
Mm-hmm.
I quote him again.
Mm-hmm.
You will now understand why I have chosen as the title of my lectures, What Can India Teach Us?
Yeah, there is a book by that title. Yes.
True, there are many things that India has to learn from us, but there are other things which
Mm-hmm.
we too may learn from India.
Mm.
If I were to look over the whole world to find out the country most richly endowed with all the wealth, power, and beauty that nature can bestow,
Mm. Very
some
glorified.
parts,
Yeah.
in
Mm-hmm.
some parts, a very paradise on earth,
Wow.
I should point to India.
Wow. That's very
If
glorified.
I were asked under what sky the human soul has most fully developed some of its choicest gifts, has most deeply pondered on the greatest problems of life,
Mm-hmm.
and has found solutions of some of them which well deserve the attention even of those who have studied Plato and Kant,
Mm.
I would point to India.
Wow.
And if I were to ask myself from what literature we here in Europe, we who have been nurtured almost exclusively on thoughts of Greeks and Romans
Mm-hmm.
and of one Semitic race, the Jewish,
Mm-hmm.
may draw that corrective which is most wanted in order to make our inner life more perfect, more comprehensive, more universal. In fact, more truly human, a life not for this life only, but a transfigured and eternal life. Again, I shall point to India.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Very glorifying. Yeah. Yeah.
But this is coming from a person
Yes.
who has never visited India.
Yes. All from his comfortable office.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
the paradise on earth he has never visited.
Yes. He never went to India. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not an oddity.
Mm.
James Mill,
Mm-hmm.
who wrote this work on history of British India, also
Right.
never visited India.
Right. Yeah.
And in his preface to his book,
Uh-huh.
introductory remarks,
Right.
he produces an argument of how
Uh-huh.
he can do a better job
Oh.
about about describing India and narrating its history than
Mm-hmm.
even people who may have lived in India.
Oh, okay. Mm.
So,
That's
what are you to make of this epistemology?
mm. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm troubled by the fact that
Mm-hmm.
somebody is paying such a handsome compliment to my country is a person who has never visited it.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
person who is writing the history of India
Right.
has never visited India.
Mm-hmm. Very
Now,
romanticized and
now,
idealized. Yeah.
now you also
Mm-hmm.
have the problem
Mm-hmm.
that this is not the end of the problem. So there are many Western scholars who translate
Yeah.
Sanskrit texts
Right.
in
Right.
often very good English,
Yes.
right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But can't speak Sanskrit.
Mm.
Now, uh, on the one hand, you can say that this is all right, so
Mm-hmm.
long as they've studied the language and all that.
Right.
On the other hand,
Yeah.
you are inclined to ask, uh,
Mm-hmm.
would you or rather, what would be your attitude to a person, if a French scholar who has translated a book from English to French, but cannot speak English?
Yeah.
Now, the comeback probably would be that Sanskrit is a classical language, so it can be done. But Sanskrit is more of a living language
Yeah.
than Greek and Latin are.
Right.
Classical.
Right. How do we? Can you say a few lines on few sentences on how can we? Because many Indians also consider Sanskrit as a dead language. How will you, or how should we respond to that allegation or portrayal of Sanskrit as a dead language? How do we?
The first question to ask would be, what is a dead language? What is a dead language?
That nobody speaks and it's just in the literature.
That was once spoken,
Right.
but now nobody speaks it.
Right.
Now, when you say nobody speaks it, what do you have in mind? That there are no native speakers, or that there is no community at all which speaks it?
Both, I guess.
So both.
Right.
So there are people who speak Sanskrit in India. They are in America.
Right.
They meet every year in Philadelphia.
Yes. Right.
All the proceedings are conducted in Sanskrit. And they talk to each other in Sanskrit. In Philadelphia. They used to do it in Montreal. They have done it in Boston.
Can that be said about other so-called dead languages like Greek and Latin?
We can say that about Latin, I think.
Okay.
Because it is conceivable.
Right.
Probably it's a fact that scholars in the Roman Catholic tradition,
right,
right, would probably learn Latin and learn it well enough to speak it.
Yes.
And use it when they meet other scholars of Latin.
Right.
Yeah. Now, there are also native speakers of Sanskrit. According to the 1951 census, there were 3,000 native speakers of Sanskrit.
In 1951. Okay.
Yeah, native speakers.
Okay.
And then the figure had risen to about close to 50,000 in the
latest
censuses. And then there was a sudden drop to about 20,000, and we don't know what happened.
Okay.
Right. So the point I'm trying to make is that there are people in India for whom Sanskrit is a mother tongue. Now, some people might say that this is aspirational. They want to think. But then how do you decide? I mean, the Hindi we speak in India these days is half English.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you decide whether somebody says that yes, it is my native language, and you say it is not? Are you there? The line went dead. Pankaj, can you hear me?
Yes. I don't know what happened. Yeah. Okay. Let's continue.
Something went wrong.
Yes. Let's continue. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now you might say,
right,
it's not a living language. To counter that argument, you might say that it's a small number.
Yeah. Right.
In a country like India,
Right.
how does it matter if
Right.
So there are so many tribal languages in India which are spoken by people fewer than that number.
Right. Right.
So would you not call them languages or living languages?
Anthropologists love them, I think.
Yeah. Actually, the
Yes.
census of around 1930 in India
Right.
went to the length of identifying a language which had no living speakers.
Ah.
Oh, no, sorry, which had only one living speaker.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
wonder whom was the person talking to. Is the
Right.
fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Is it where was this language? This
One
with one
tribal
speaker?
language, only one speaker.
Part of it, yeah. Which
Yeah,
part of it?
tribal. This is 1930 census,
Oh, okay.
around that time.
Okay. But yeah, so they are still valid languages. Then why not Sanskrit? Yeah.
Why not call it a living language?
Yeah.
So I think this is a totally wrong impression,
Right.
which has been probably spread by, to a certain extent, by interested parties who would
Mm-hmm.
like to see Sanskrit dead.
Hmm. Yeah, which is more serious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
would
Right.
like, and the best way to do that is to kill something, is to call the person dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
One way
And
of killing somebody
yeah.
is to call the person dead.
Right. And not non-threatening and safe in the museum. It's
Yeah,
safe in the museum.
exactly. The
Right.
museum syndrome. They really want Hinduism and Sanskrit to be in a museum.
Museum syndrome. Yeah.
Why? Remember the point about control I mentioned earlier?
Yes. In the
You can
beginning.
control what is dead.
Right.
You can't control what is living.
Right.
Parents have discovered.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Okay. So.
This is the first point I wish to make. I don't know how far to take it, but I
Mm,
do feel very uneasy
mm,
that you have people who have not visited India who are writing about its history and culture.
mm,
You have people who can't speak Sanskrit who are translating Sanskrit texts.
right.
Yeah,
Mhm,
it creates some unease in me. I have not been able to resolve this fully.
mm,
I
mm,
can see other sides to it also,
mhm, mhm,
you know, but I have a residual skepticism
mhm,
about about this arrangement. Okay.
mm. Yeah. Okay.
Uh, the Fortunately, of course, now this is less true.
Mm,
And
mm,
most
mm.
of the scholars have visited India and lived in India and so on.
Correct.
But the attitude that we can tell
Our own story. Oh,
you
yeah.
what you are,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
without part of you,
Yeah.
that persists.
Yes.
The second point I wish to raise is of a historical issue. Uh, when we discuss the issue of antiquity,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to say a few things about that.
Mm-hmm.
It seems as if the West has always had a problem with antiquity,
Mm,
especially the Christian Europe. Now,
mm.
let me
Yeah.
try to share with you something which I discovered
Sure.
when studying Christianity for my world religions course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is J.G.
Christianity.
Davies.
I just
J.G.
discovered that you
Davies
wrote a book on Christianity. Christianity for Hindus.
for India.
It's amazing.
So, Christianity, there's a chapter by J.G. Davies, and he begins it by saying
Mm-hmm.
it was one of the charges leveled against the Christians of the second century
Mm-hmm.
that their,
Mm-hmm.
quote, doctrine had but recently come to light,
Mm-hmm.
end of quote.
Mm-hmm.
That is, Christianity was of recent origin.
Very recent discovery, or yeah, right.
Christianity was a novelty according to its pagan opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, so their argument ran,
Mm-hmm.
scarcely worthy of serious consideration
Mm-hmm.
in comparison with the ancient worship of the Greek and Roman gods.
Mm-hmm.
How did the Christians do to deal with this?
Oh yeah.
They claimed
That's that, yeah.
that that explains the whole Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
They had to basically
Mm-hmm.
put it in a secular way,
Mm-hmm.
cop the Hebraic tradition, the Jewish tradition,
Yeah.
give historical depth to their own.
Yes.
So Apostle Paul,
Mm-hmm.
during his defense before Agrippa And Berenice at Caesarea says, I stand here to be judged for the hope of the promise made of God unto our fathers.
Hmm.
Now remember, Paul is a Jew.
Yes, Saint Paul. Yes.
Our fathers are
Yeah.
the Jews.
Yeah.
Now we make sense of the fact that when modern Europe emerged,
Right.
it was also looking for
Hmm.
historical depth,
Yes.
like Christianity. And where did it find it? In Greece.
Hmm. Yes.
And because modern Europe emphasized science,
Right.
it focused on the rationality and the
Yes.
scientific spirit of the Greeks.
Right. Right. Aristotle and all that. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now, we don't have to make any such effort. Remember,
Hmm. Hmm.
this is the subtle ways in which our culture conditions us
Mm-hmm.
when we study another culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We don't have to reconstruct our past. It's already in sort of ingrained.
We don't have that problem.
Right. 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 Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to the extent that they had this problem,
Right.
we have to watch out to the extent to which
Right.
it says influence the mediation of our tradition.
Right.
Remember,
Yeah.
they're always trying to use very strong words, commit chronological felony, deprive,
Chronological felony.
knock off some centuries here, somewhere,
Yeah.
But I'm being a bit facetious. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's still a big problem for anybody actually, even in India, that to give anything more beyond Indus Valley civilization, it's still a big no-no.
Yeah,
Indus Valley, that's
but
it.
first, even getting to the Indus Valley was a problem at one time.
Right.
First, Clostermeyer has written very sensitively about this.
Oh, okay.
You said that the West may have had a problem
Right.
with getting anybody beyond 1500
Yeah.
BCE
Yeah. It's a big problem.
because
Yeah.
their own prophets are
Ah,
based around
right.
1800,
Yeah, around that time. So,
800 or something like that.
yeah.
That's when
Yeah.
Abraham is usually placed.
Right. Right.
So you couldn't go beyond Abraham.
Right.
If your
Right.
creation itself is took place in 2002, no, then there's a problem, as we saw earlier.
Correct. 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 That's a huge
Okay.
issue. Yes.
Now let us resume our discussion
Yes.
of the book.
Yes.
And I turn to page 8,
Mm-hmm.
and the section is entitled The Glory of Ancient India.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will read out a certain passage from it to you.
Mm-hmm.
At most periods of our history, I am quoting Professor Gresham,
Mm.
at most periods of our history, India, though a cultural unit,
Mm-hmm.
has been torn by internecine or internecine war.
Oh wow. That is
Its
that's
statecraft, in statecraft, her
mm.
rules were cunning and
Okay.
unscrupulous.
Wow. What a beginning. Oh wow.
Famine, flood, and plague
Oh,
visited her from time to time
oh.
and killed millions of her people. In this passage, I need to make two remarks about
Mm.
this. In
Mm.
statecraft, her rulers were cunning and unscrupulous. This is an indirect allusion
Mm.
to the Arthashastra of Kautilya,
Mm. Yes. You're right.
who I
Right.
think later on in the book he also accuses of being almost fascist.
Oh wow. Wow. Really? Oh.
Nobody who has read the
Um,
uh, yeah,
Arthashastra.
Arshas or has looked at the vows which the kings take
Mm.
when they are coronated
Yes. Yes. Yes.
on how they will take care of the subjects.
Mm. 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 Mm.
Yeah,
Mm. That's very serious. Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Very serious.
They
Yeah.
accept this that this is our concept of statecraft, and it has produced a very interesting result in the book.
Mm.
Professor Basham later on
Mm-hmm.
will refer to the Manusmriti.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the Manusmriti, there are passages on how battle should be fought. That is, in what spirit, what code of chivalry should govern it. And he praises it. I quote him now. No other ancient lawgiver proclaimed such noble ideals of fair play in battle as did Manu.
Oh, so on the one hand, he's praising Manusmriti. On the other hand, he's
No, but he's praising Manusmriti, but he's criticizing the Arthashastra.
Yeah, exactly. Very interesting contrast.
No, wait a minute. He gives the page number for it, page 126, right, in the book. He does not realize that the Arthashastra has the same passages.
Oh. All right. So more interesting. Okay.
This is startling.
Yeah, it's stunning. Really.
It's a very startling omission because this, if you omit that, you can say that they are cunning and unscrupulous because politics is at times unscrupulous, and Kautilya does not shy away from that.
Yes, Kutniti. Yes.
Right. So
but why is this fallacy there? Right.
First point to note about this.
Okay. Yeah.
Second point is he mentions famine, flood, and plague visited her from time to time and it killed millions of her people.
I don't know why that statement there.
No, well, maybe also true in some sense, but he does not seem to realize, or if he does know it, then he has not mentioned it here, that 30 million Indians perished from famine under British rule.
There, right under his nose, in a way. Yeah. That was very recent when he was writing this book, right? It's like just
I mean, he wrote. It was during his lifetime that India became independent.
Yeah, right. And then Bengal famine and all very recent, right? Recent for his time, yeah. And then he totally omits that, as if it was none of their fault of people. Yeah.
Now I'm going to quote again from his book, and what I'm going to state will, on the face of it, seem very straightforward. This is a slightly subtle point. So I quote him now.
Okay.
Inequality of birth was given religious sanction. Now, inequality of birth was given religious sanction. Do you agree with that?
No. It's the standard caste system narrative that has been played out in the Western Indology for like decades now. Many decades.
But they will say that the Purush Sukta, they will quote the Purush Sukta and the Manusmriti.
Right.
And how will you question it?
So Purush Sukta does say that Brahmins arose from the head and Shudras arose from the feet, but then that doesn't mean that Brahmins are always supposed to be higher or ruling over the Shudra. That it doesn't say those things, and it doesn't say that people are born by birth, and by birth itself they are Brahmins or Shudras. That it's not mentioned anywhere in Purush Sukta.
Yeah.
Manusmriti does have interesting points on both kinds of points it makes in
some passages. Right, it goes by birth. Yes. And some it goes by merit.
Right. And then in the Bhagavad Gita it says by guna karma vibhag.
That's right. But the point I'm trying to make is different. And this is where the subtle cultural bias comes in.
Okay.
In the West, there's a clear distinction between the religious and the secular.
Oh, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Therefore, if something has a religious sanction, it becomes particularly abominable. Look at religion. Right. But in the Hindu civilization, there is no distinction between religion and culture.
Yeah.
So how can he say that inequality at birth was given religious sanction? This comment can only come from a person with Western cultural conditioning.
Yeah. Right.
There is a clear division between secular and religious.
Yeah.
And even religious sanction is given equality,
Right, right.
which
But there is no such
presumably,
thing as religion
which
in the
presumably other religions don't.
right, right, right. Yeah, the entire culture is same as
But
yeah,
the very distinction between religious and secular
right, right.
is
Yeah,
problematical from an Indic point of view.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
It's a
but
problem to
no,
call it
this,
religion.
no, even the point goes even further.
Okay.
Because you and I have
Mm-hmm.
had most of our education in English,
Right, right.
many Indians will not detect this
Ah,
because we have imbibed
yeah,
that.
yes. I mean, yes, yes, yes. It has, yeah, we have to stop and pause and think that, yes, the
It took
problem.
me several years to figure out. I would feel a bit uneasy when I would read it, but I'd say, okay, okay.
Ah,
I
yeah,
would feel a bit
religious
uneasy
section.
with the comment, but I would not know
Yes,
my,
yes,
the
yes.
cause of my unease.
Right, yeah. Right,
Just I
right.
still do not know the cause of my unease with a person who can't speak Sanskrit, translating
Right.
Sanskrit text. You know,
Yeah,
I can't pin it down.
right.
But now I've been able to pin it down in this case.
Ah, yeah,
It is the
yeah,
Western bias
yeah.
in Western conceptual categories make
Mm-hmm.
themselves out.
Yeah, because there is nobody to really give religious sanction. There is no religious kind of sanction. There is no
Also,
religion as such in the entire culture. So
that
yeah,
distinction
all
is
those
not
things.
there.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Yeah, we forget sometimes. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yes. Mhm.
we move on.
But what about the issue of this birth thing? Is there any such sanction, a cultural sanction, or that by birth you are inequality? Is it stamped by birth? What would you say? That's a big. That's also
In the caste system kind of thing,
uh-huh,
quote unquote kind of varna and all,
uh-huh.
this is a very delicate question, but it might take us a bit afar from what we are doing, but no problem. We can do
Okay,
that.
okay. I think
My
so. Yeah.
own, my own feeling is
Uh-huh.
that if you look at you have to look at the so-called caste system
Yeah.
in overall perspective.
Right. Right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because the claim is that the system characterized India in some way,
Mm.
more or less from its inception,
Mm. Oh
or
yeah.
through
Yeah.
culture,
Mm-hmm.
from what might be called its inception. Okay,
Right. 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 Right.
that for a long period of time,
Mm-hmm.
the major category
Mm-hmm.
involved this type of thinking
Mm-hmm.
is varna.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
A very strong case can be made
Mm-hmm.
that the link of varna to birth
Mm-hmm.
was tenuous, to say the
Mm.
least.
Mm.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, I have documented the evidence in one of
Mm.
my books.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think Classical Hindu Thought,
Yes, probably. Yeah.
Introduction to Classical Hindu Thought.
Mm-hmm.
And the reviewer of the book
Mm.
made this a point
Mm.
in his review.
Mm.
After reading this book, no one can claim that there was no mobility among the Varnas.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that's an interesting.
Mm. But
But then, uh,
so
from a
do you?
certain period, from about 4th century
Uh-huh.
onwards, BC,
Uh,
you
mm-hmm.
get the
Mm-hmm.
idea of jati.
Right. Right.
So that what used to be Varna
Mm-hmm.
becomes jati.
Yes.
Scholars have seen it at work in the Manusmriti.
Right.
And jatis are, of course, endogamous,
Uh-huh. Okay. Right.
sexual, yeah, marry
Right.
among themselves, eat among themselves, and are
Right.
often craft exclusive.
Right. 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 Right.
Now, there is good evidence to support this.
Right.
That so you might say that using modern dates, from
Uh-huh.
about 1500 BCE,
Right.
about 400 BCE,
Right.
Varna was the regnant category.
Mm-hmm.
From then till the end of the medieval period,
Ah,
Jati became the
the dominant category.
regnant category.
Okay.
So there
Okay.
is mobility even within Jati,
Right. Right.
Manu, yeah,
Ah.
over generations.
Ah. Ah. Ah.
But during this period, long period, you had three
Uh-huh.
interpretations of, broadly speaking,
Mm.
caste based on birth.
Right.
based on both worth and worth, and based on worth. Based on worth, based on both birth and worth. That is, you may be born, say, Brahman or a Kshatriya, but if you don't follow the right vocation, then you are no longer one.
Okay.
And then it's not by birth at all.
Okay.
And the most interesting evidence of that position is from Kumaril Bhatt, who accepts that Hindu India has had kings who have been Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and whom we now call Dalits.
So there are examples of Shudra kings as well?
Yeah, oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Very many, and both in the text and in inscriptions.
Right. Oh, Chandragupta Maurya is one example.
Warren, of course.
Yes,
But Warren, according to the Puranas, not according to the Buddhist tradition.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So you have to keep all three in play.
Right.
What is going on?
Yes.
And then the third stage is caste proper, which the British introduced in India.
Right.
And they imposed their own idea of caste and what it should be on us.
Right. The Portuguese word and all that. Yeah.
Portuguese, and then the censuses and
right.
The civil servant.
Yes.
Risley.
Correct.
And so on. Right.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
So this is the overall situation. So you see that the parameters determining the major social configuration. They shift.
Right.
I hope this helps.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, to come back to the text.
Yeah, sure.
Now, here's the following line on page 9. I quote him now. In no other early civilization were slaves so few in number.
Okay.
And in no other ancient law book are their rights so well protected as in the Earth Shastra.
Oh, okay. So far, so good. Okay.
So far, so good. Now,
a
couple of points here. First is, this remarks comes from a person who belongs to a culture which roots itself in Rome and Greece.
Right.
Slavery was
a
major element in social life.
Yes.
So it's again being filtered through the remarks on Indian history and culture are being filtered through Western
lenses.
Western conditioning.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But at least he sees India better than Rome and Greece. At least.
Yes, no, and as I say, it's not without its merit.
Right. Yes.
Not without its merit. Made you clear in the very beginning.
Right. That we are
that it is a critique. It's not a criticism.
Right.
What we are doing is a critique.
Yes.
And I entirely agree with you that in this respect, it draws attention to a very interesting factor, aspect.
Yes.
But that again,
Western. Yes, that lens is definitely Western. Yes, definitely.
There is a very interesting consequence of this is, it's not a very well-known fact, that some of the Greek writers on India praise the egalitarian character of Indian society.
Oh, okay. Really? That's a surprise.
Whether the modern West
is
struck by the inegalitarian character of Hindu society.
Yeah, exactly.
Greeks were struck by the egalitarian character of Hindu society.
That I'm hearing for the first time. Really? Wow.
There is a text to prove it. I may even have cited it in my book, I'm not sure. There are Greek writers who clearly say this.
Oh, wow.
Why do they say this?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
But Megasthenes said that slaves do not exist in India.
So they cannot deny what Megasthenes wrote in Indica.
Not exactly that, but Megasthenes was also impressed by this fact.
Yeah. Wow.
So that for them, the great division in society was between the slaves and the masters. Very interestingly, there is a Buddhist sutta in which a reference is made to the fact that beyond the Hindu Kush, beyond that land, there are only two classes. This cis Indus, in the kind of India we live in, there are four classes: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Beyond that, there are only master and slave. What I'm trying to point out is that the very so-called caste system, which for the modern Westerner, is the hallmark of the inegalitarian character of Hindu society, was the basis for his predecessors, cultural predecessors, or claimed cultural predecessors, the Greeks, as proof of the egalitarian character of Indian society.
Right. Oh, that's very, very interesting. That, yeah. So quite a contrast, right?
A remarkable contrast.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I've alluded to this in the book on the ruler's gaze.
Oh, your recent book, very recent book. Yes.
Okay. And then we come to the next point. And he has a very remarkable comment. To us, I quote him now, to us, the most striking feature of ancient Indian civilization is its humanity.
Okay. That sounds good.
Although he has just said that inequality was given religious sanction.
Okay.
Yeah, but nevertheless, this is a very remarkable statement,
Right.
a very charitable one.
Yeah. But then, yeah.
And I think it is borne out. The question I'm asking is, ancient Indian civilization? Is it not true of Indian civilization? So one would immediately say untouchability. Right? Then we will have to point out that did India have slaves?
They don't.
There are two things Indian civilization has not yet been accused of. Seriously. With serious scholarship. Genocide and slavery.
Yeah. Or religious wars.
But now, wait a minute. Just hold on.
Yeah.
See, you might say, well, what does it matter? What does it mean? What it means is this. Securing equality and justice in a society is not an easy job. Not an easy task. What is the proof of that? What is the proof of that? We all look up to America now with good reason. Right? United States of America, how many years has it been in existence? Say about 500. Right?
Yeah.
It's already stained by genocide, the American Indians, and slavery. Blacks.
Yeah.
Already.
Yes. Yeah. Even before the U.S. Constitution was formed, genocide already.
Yeah. There are 2 points here. One is that one should not be too glib about speaking of equality.
Yes.
Even modern European egalitarianism has been achieved at a time when it was reducing the rest of the world
Oh,
colonial status,
yes, yes, yeah,
and practicing genocide
mm,
and slavery,
yes, yes, yes,
even
right,
when it did not have it within its borders.
right. Outside they
But
were doing all
at
these
least,
things.
yeah, you had the
Mm,
Holocaust, so
oh,
sorry, that's
job,
another point.
yes, mm,
Oops.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
So what is these are very delicate matters. Societies have a tendency to
mm,
sediment,
mm, yes,
become unequal. That is one.
correct, right,
The
right.
second is, of course, that when you raise the issue of the caste and its inegalitarian nature and the
Mhm,
worst possible depiction of the caste system
yes,
through a Western lens,
mm-hmm,
Western
mm-hmm,
bias lens,
right,
even
right,
then,
mm-hmm,
even then it escapes the accusations of
right,
genocide and slavery, which can easily be leveled even against the modern West.
right, right.
And
Yeah,
this is
that's a
a
great.
point we need
Yeah.
to keep in mind.
Right, right, right. Mm,
But only to be used, sparingly. I mean,
yeah,
we all want to promote equality as far as possible.
right,
Okay. Then
yeah,
he mentions some
mm-hmm,
19th century missionaries
mm-hmm,
and how their work helped, and I quote him now,
mm-hmm.
helped to propagate the widespread fallacy that India is a land of lethargic gloom.
Oh,
End of quote.
okay.
Is a land of lethargic gloom.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Now, he acknowledges that it is the work of the missionary.
mm,
What I want to point out is that there's a deeper point to be made here,
mm-hmm,
which may be because of his own Western background,
mm,
would not come to him easily.
mm-hmm,
If it came, it would come a bit late in life,
mm-hmm,
maybe after he had written this book. I don't know. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Point
mm-hmm,
is this: missionaries
mm-hmm,
and even many modern scholars are under some kind of a compulsion
mm-hmm,
to do this.
mm,
Now, let's
yeah,
take the case of the missionaries. The
mm-hmm,
missionaries are coming to India to bring the
mm-hmm,
religion to the
yes,
right.
yes, right, right,
So, whatever they find
mm-hmm,
in order to advance their case,
mm-hmm.
whatever they find in the heathen land has to be condemned.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah,
It's
for
a,
sure.
it's a compulsion, no matter
Mm-hmm,
how good or bad it really is.
mm-hmm,
If it is
mm-hmm.
really bad, then of course you have all the raw data. And
Yeah.
if it is really or has very good aspects or is on the whole good, then you
Mm,
must focus on the apparently bad
yeah.
aspect,
Right. Right. Right.
which can then give rise to the atrocity literature,
Yes. Yes.
which can then be used as a justification
Yes.
sending missionaries to India,
Right. Right. To civilize.
to
Yeah.
other countries,
Yes. Yes.
and to raise funds for sending them.
Mm, mm,
So
mm.
it is not a casual fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
It's a part of a chain
Right. Right. Right.
in which several factors are involved.
Mm. Right. 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 One leads to the other, and so on. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
all
Mm.
interconnected.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
patitsamupad, interdependent sort of.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, another
Mm-hmm.
interesting point.
Mm.
Uh, I quote him again.
Mm-hmm.
The European student
Mm-hmm.
who concentrates on religious texts of a certain type may well gain the impression that ancient India was a land of life negating, quote unquote. life negating ascetics,
mm,
imposing their gloomy and sterile ideas
mm,
upon the trusting millions
mm.
who were their lay followers.
Oh, okay. Uh,
End of quote.
Again, a very broad brush in here with all kinds of problems.
No, but he's talking about the European.
Okay.
Among the phrase life negating
Uh-huh.
has an asterisk,
Uh,
and the
uh,
asterisk says
uh-huh.
this term, as
Mm,
applied to Indian religion,
mm,
thought, and culture, is that of the great doctor Albert Schweitzer.
mm. The Christian theologian. Right?
And the name is mentioned, the name of the book, Indian Thought and Its Development,
Mm,
passive.
mm,
End of bracket, end of quote.
mm,
Right?
mm, mm,
What he does not mention is that
mm,
the great Dr. Schweitzer was a
mm.
missionary.
Theologian, missionary, Nobel laureate, right? He was
He was a
Nobel laureate.
missionary.
Yes,
missionary.
yes. Uh-huh. Okay. Uh,
So what he's saying in the previous para
uh,
applies to him,
uh,
but not the way Basham presents him.
uh.
His missionary background is elided.
Right, right, right.
So Western scholars, when they talk about Indian texts, speak of erasures.
Ah, very conveniently.
Things which are not mentioned from Hindu in Indian texts,
Right,
in
right.
Sanskrit texts, yeah,
Uh, uh,
civilization and so on, erasure. And here
mm.
is the erasure right here,
Yeah,
erasure of his background.
right, right. Yeah. That changes the whole thing. Yeah, right.
Okay,
Mm,
next one.
mm, yes.
Uh, Professor Basham has written this very positive point
Mhm,
about the glory of ancient India being connected to its humanity.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
and he also ends by saying, he ends this section by saying, quote him again,
mm,
India was a cheerful land
mm, mhm,
whose people,
mm,
each finding a niche
mm,
in a complex and slowly evolving social system,
mm,
reached a higher level of kindliness and gentleness
mm,
in their mutual relationships
mhm.
than any other nation of antiquity.
Wow, very bold statement. Uh-huh.
And
Mhm,
I continue,
mm,
for this, as
mm,
well as for her great achievements in
mm,
religion, literature, art, and mathematics. One European student at least at least would record his admiration of our ancient culture.
mm,
End of quote.
mhm,
And the point I would like to emphasize here again is
mhm,
nation in antiquity, our ancient culture.
mm,
Again,
mm. As long as it's ancient, it's fine.
yeah, ancient.
Yeah, ancient. All ancient is
Great
good.
language. Sanskrit is a great language, but dead. Hindu civilization was a great civilization, but gone.
All ancient, safe and gone. Yeah, yeah.
Now, you might regard these remarks as a bit too harsh,
Mm.
right? You
It's
might.
fine.
And you read the. After all, it says very positive things.
Mm,
And I
mm.
met him in person.
Oh,
I knew
okay.
him in person.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was a very interesting, nice person.
Where
So
did you meet him? Where was that?
I met him in Australia.
Oh, yeah. You were also in
Yeah,
Australia. Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Uh, but let
Oh,
let me share something else with you, which will
sure.
probably help you realize why I'm making this point
Yeah. Uh-huh.
with some reluctance.
Mm-hmm.
One feels reluctant to criticize people one has met. So sort of, and had good relations with,
Right.
Yeah, anyway, but we have to rise above that sometimes.
Right.
Okay, now, Professor Elliot Dodge shared this with the audience of which I was a member.
Mm.
Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe a group of you.
Okay.
There was a conference in India
Mm-hmm.
on Indian culture and civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And Professor Basham, as the dean of Indologists,
Mm-hmm.
certainly in his times,
Mm-hmm.
was invited and gave the keynote address.
Mm-hmm.
In this keynote address, he said very clearly
Mm.
that he preferred an ancient politically divided India
Oh,
to a modern politically united India.
wow. Wow. Openly. Ah.
And he said everybody was aghast, and and this is. But anyway, the
Ah.
point is that this is a person who has spent his whole life
Uh-huh.
teaching Indian religion and culture, history and culture.
Right.
It's in this remarkable book,
Right.
It Was India, fine human being, right?
Right.
But when it really matters,
Ah. Uh-huh.
when there's anything about power,
Ah. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Country
Yeah.
becomes militarily or politically powerful,
Yeah.
back off.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
throughout, he emphasizes
Mm-hmm.
the what we'll call the imperial version of Indian history.
Mm-hmm.
This whole country has never seen political unity. It was always broken up. We gave it political unity.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
gave it this terrible land, politically and socially riven. We
Right.
united it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were leaving. The Hindus and Muslims could not get together, so it had to be divided.
Right.
And when
Yeah.
they were ready to govern themselves, we left.
Yeah.
It's like called the honeymoon version of British rule over India, right? Just basically,
Mm. Yeah.
I do see a connection between that version and his position. That he did not like the idea of India as a united center
Right.
with a
He
central.
said openly. He said, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Well,
That's enough for today.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. Let's
We'll
almost
move on to the next chapter next time.
right. So yeah, we'll continue next Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Namaste.
Namaskar.
Thank you.